Hey everyone, so I'm finally back at my old place after all these months. Unfortunately, there is no furniture here. Couldn't afford any yet. So there's going to be a little bit of echo. Hopefully that's not going to be much of a bother. Hopefully this video is still going to be listenable. But I will make sure that this is the first room that gets furniture so that the video quality improves. At least the carpet and some drapes. But anyway, right, with that said, I was reading an article today, very interesting. It was talking about how, because of the video gaming industry doing poorly, the stock market in the United States is also doing poorly. And it's very funny when you think about it. It's like, kids, play your video games, help your country's economy, you know? Or kids, don't play video games, help the United States crash. And it's interesting, right? Because it sounds ridiculous. But when you think about it, the video gaming industry is making more money than Hollywood industry. GTA 5, if I'm not mistaken, sold more copies than any movie out there, right? Made more money than any blockbuster film. And because of that, there's a lot of investors, there's a lot of money being put into video games. So when you hear news like Ubisoft has lost 9% of its stocks, EA Games has lost 24%. Blizzard Activision, I think it's almost 50% at this point. And Blizzard Activision is also starting to do massive layoffs. I guess people didn't have phones. I guess they didn't have phones in the end. But you do notice that video games all across the board are doing poorly. And this is mostly in the Western market, right? Like if you look at outside companies, like for example, CD Projekt Red, that's doing excellent. The Japanese market, I mean Capcom with their new Resident Evil, I don't think they're doing so bad now, you know, and with their Monster World video game that they pushed out, also very interesting, right? So I was thinking, like, what exactly has caused this? Because a lot of people are going to say, well, it's social justice, you know, it's like the left latching on to these corporations, and this is the problem. But I think it's not like that. I think that there are multiple reasons for why we have this. There are different vectors that have caused these companies to lose so much money. In my opinion, the major one, the first one, is the corporations themselves. You used to look at the video gaming industry, and what you saw were a couple of guys that were incredibly passionate about video games. They were incredibly passionate about what they did. And they would get into a garage, and they would sit there for months, sometimes years, and then they would come out with a product like Doom, for example. And that was a success, and you could notice the passion that the developers put into the game. You could definitely notice the love, the attention to details, right? Nowadays, video games aren't made necessarily by people with a passion. They're made by corporations, and they're also made as if it's the assembly line. Every year, a new Call of Duty needs to come out. Every year, an expansion to World of Warcraft needs to come out. Doesn't matter if it's the right time or not. Doesn't matter if people really want to or not. No, it's another year. You need to have another Assassin's Creed. And it's also the lack of innovation that's showing. I don't think any E3 highlighted the lack of innovation like the previous one. Like, up till now, you would have so many interesting games coming out. Like when the first Splinter Cell game came out, people were like, wow, this is so cool, you know? So you play this guy and you have to shoot the lights in order to create darkness so the enemies can't find you. And if you step on glass, you make noise and enemies can hear you. You know, or when the Warcraft 3 came out, people were also baffled. It's like, well, so this is like a strategy game that also has a role-playing game in it. That is so cool. That is so interesting, right? You'd have all these games that would come out with new interesting concepts, with new and interesting stories. And if you looked at the previous E3 that came out now, you don't see that. You see the same games that are popular and people just trying to rip them off and copy elements that made that game popular and make their own thing. And you had this in the past, to be honest, with World of Warcraft. You know, like World of Warcraft was this very popular game and it attracted a lot of people and a lot of money was made. And other companies constantly kept trying to make their own World of Warcraft. And it never worked. And the reason it doesn't work is because people pay money to play World of Warcraft. They create their own characters there. They have a lot of time investment in that game. So why would they then just say, you know what, I'm going to drop World of Warcraft in order to play this other MMO that just came out and is the same like WoW, pretty much, it's like 90% the same, maybe with different graphics and stuff. and I'll start over from there. Like why would people do that? You know, the MOBA genre as well. Like everyone is trying to get a cut of it. You know, League of Legends got so popular after Dota, and now everyone tried to get their own spin. Like there was this MOBA with DC superheroes or something. You know, like these things never got up from the start. It's like no, and you see this at the last E3. Like there are absolutely no interesting Western games that are coming out. Like you got what? You got Anthem, you know, from BioWare, which I guess is an okay game, but it's BioWare. It should be like, oh my god, this is so cool. You know, BioWare made a new game. No, it's just BioWare's Destiny or Division. You know, they try to rip off those games because those are popular. So let's try and make our own game. And then what you get Division 2, which again is a rip-off of Destiny. And there's literally like no originality. What else was shown at E3? I think it was like a Tomb Raider and something like that. And then you compare it to the Japanese that are coming up with Resident Evil 2 remake, which in my opinion is not a remake at all. It's just like a brand new game. It's like a restart because it's a completely different game. The atmosphere is different. Everything is amazing there. You got Death Stranding that's also coming up. Monster Hunter World, you know, like all these games that are coming from the Japanese market that are so different than anything else that's out there. And yeah, that's what people want to buy. That's what people are interested in because that's the cool shit that people don't get to play. People are sick and tired of Call of Duty. They're sick and tired of all of these games that have just come up after, you know, it's almost like the attack of the clone games. You know, all these clones that are coming up from the Western market. And this goes into another reason why the industry is doing so poorly. Is that if you listen to E3, you will notice, especially Ubisoft, if I'm not mistaken, they said that they want their games to change the world. It's like, can you please entertain people before you change the world? Like, you're a gaming company. You're supposed to entertain me, right? You want my dollars. And my wallet has its butt cheeks open for you. The money is coming out. I want you to take my money. Please, take my money. But they don't want to take my money, right? Instead, they want to change the world. It's like, okay, well, if you want to change the world, I guess I'll just give my money for the Japanese people so I can get some entertainment. And you take your money from someone that actually wants to change the world. You know, like they are so into their corporate culture, right? Like I don't know how else to call them, but they got like their own mindset and their own plans, I guess. And they are so disconnected to gamers, like it's not even funny. Last year, we just saw how disconnected companies are to gamers, right? You got Blizzard, who, for some reason in their arrogance, have this thing called BlizzCon. And what BlizzCon really is, if you think about it, it's a place where you go to see Blizzard advertisements, right? Like all other companies give you advertisements for free. Blizzard has found a way to get people to pay money so they can see Blizzard ads. And you'd say, well, at least the ads are good, right? Like at least the ads must deliver because I'm paying money for them. And no, like instead they showed an ad for mobile games to PC gamers. And of course people are pissed off. And when people are pissed off, they go like, oh, don't you have phones, you guys? Don't you? They don't. They didn't have phones. They didn't have phones. And then they made other decisions after poor decisions. Another company that doesn't understand gamers was EA, right? It's like, oh, if you don't like it, don't buy it. They didn't buy it. They didn't buy it. Gamers are sexist, misogynist. They are. They are. And you know what? Why would you take their money if you're that principled? If you're really that principled, again, how can you sleep at night knowing that you take misogynist money? So I guess gamers gave you the ability to sleep at night knowing that you haven't took misogynist cash. You know, deal with 40% losses in your company because those are misogynist dollars, aren't they? But you know, like you look at how much contempt companies have for gamers. It's not even funny, and they don't listen. They don't listen. For example, there's this brand new trend to sanitize their games everywhere. They need to be sanitized, right? Because apparently this is the main issue with video games. It wasn't the main issue when video games were popular at their height. Like when people would play StarCraft and they could type whatever they wanted. There was no censor. People could log into Diablo 2 and they could say whatever they wanted. There was no one to censor them. World of Warcraft in the beginning when it first launched, you could have typed whatever you wanted in the general chat. There was no moderator to ban you. right? But all of a sudden, no, it's communication online is a problem. And what is the solution to fix it? Completely remove the chat. Look at Hearthstone, right? In Hearthstone, I feel like I'm playing a single player game. I feel like there's no opponent on the opposite side because it's just me, right? And I can't type anything to them. And this is a trend that Blizzard has also got in Heroes of the Storm. You can't talk to the enemy team. And it's another trend that Magic the Gathering has also got. You can't talk with the enemy team there. And it's like, oh, well, to avoid toxicity. It's like, okay, well, why not give an on-off button? You know, if I want to talk to the chat, why not just have a button where I can click it off? No, and apparently because of that, you know, I genuinely think because of that, the game becomes boring really fast. And Hearthstone has lost a lot of players, right? Like a lot of people are moving away. They don't play Hearthstone. Overwatch, the same thing. Just go on and type Overwatch banned for. And you will find how many people are being banned for playing a character. I'm not even kidding. Spamming emotes. Or maybe, you know, they made a video recording on Twitch where they said something that has a potty mouth, and no one reported them in the game, but the developer watched that Twitch stream and then they got the ban. You know, it's like, okay, right, so why would I pay you money and risk having my account banned just because I offend your sensibilities? Like, this doesn't happen with Japanese games. I'm sorry to say this, you know? And then you go to the esports, right? And the esports is the thing that is supposed to keep the industry going. Like, it's the thing that's supposed to get people hooked up. You're watching, you know, like your favorite StarCraft player, and you're like, oh shit, I want to do that. And then you go on and you play StarCraft, right? Maybe you purchase some skins or whatever the fuck they have to sell now. But part of being into video games is the banter. Now, I love watching Evo, which is the fighting game community, because every now and then you see a person just taking their stick and smashing it into the ground. You know, you see people just getting angry and storming off, or, you know, starting throwing insults and banter. I loved watching that. It's entertaining, right? Like, I'm watching it to get entertained. And when you look at Blizzard and, you know, all these other companies, in esports, if you don't act like a robot, if you don't act 100% like an NPC while you're playing the video games, they will fine you. They will ban you. Like, there was this guy who was playing Hearthstone, and he did like this when he was playing. And because his opponent was Asian, they considered that to be hate speech or whatever, insulting or grossly offensive or whatever the fuck they said. And you know, the guy apparently got the fine because he did this while playing. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? You know, and you see cases after cases after cases of players getting fined because they're doing some banter or they're being a little bit controversial. Like, why would I want to watch that? Honestly. There's even this new push that if you want to watch esports, you have to connect your BAL count to your Twitch account. And a lot of people, you know, they don't trust Blizzard at this point. Like, they know the policy that Blizzard has in other places, and they're thinking, okay, so if I watch Twitch and I type something offensive in chat, will they ban my Battle.net account? Do I have any assurance that the answer is no, right? So a lot of people are turned off by it. And all of this leads into, you know, like the idea of social justice. A lot of people are upset that leftists are ruining video games. And I think to an extent, yes and no. Like, it's not necessarily the left. It's companies use social justice in order to deflect criticism. This is what it boils down to. Let me give you an example, right? FIFA. Now, FIFA used to have certain content in the game, and the developers took it out. And they go like, oh, FIFA 2016, you get to play as women's, you get to play with women. And a lot of people pointed out, it's like, well, this content that we used to have in the game is not in the game anymore. Ah, you're misogynist, this is why you don't buy FIFA. It's like, if you don't like women, you're not going to buy FIFA. Buy FIFA to piss off the misogynists. Like, that is literally their advertising campaign, right? And yea and behold, the next year, it's like, oh, we listened to the criticism and we're going to introduce this into the game and blah, blah, blah. Assassin's Creed, the one in France, the one with the Françoise, with the French Revolution, filled with bugs. Game wasn't working properly. It was unplayable. It was pay to win. Like, you could actually pay money in order to buy weapons in that game. Do you know what the controversy was? Why are there no females assassins in Assassin's Creed? It's like, bitch, I can't play Assassin's Creed. What women do you think I can I please first play the game, and then we can worry about what's in it and what's not? No, apparently every single game journalist like, why aren't there women's? What are the boobies? What are the boobies in Assassin's Creed? And then, Ubisoft comes up and it's like, yeah, we listen to the criticism. There's going to be women in the next Assassin's Creed. And everyone's like, but what about the bugs? I can't play the game, right? Is that not part of the controversy? Eventually, the government had to step in and point out that loot crates are bad because, well, apparently your kid plays video games, right? And your kid gets to see all these loot crates and steals mommy's credit card because apparently gambling is addictive. And all these things have happened and they have bottled up, like things have just piled up to the point where gamers are fed up with this shit. They're fed up and they're not playing these video games, and that's why the stock market is crashing. Another example, right? Game developers don't make video games for gamers anymore. They make video games for game journalists. Why? Because in their infinite wisdom, the publishers are deciding that let's use Metacritic to see if the game does well or not. Because publishers really want numbers, right? Like, and I kind of understand why, but they want to put a number to something. So they know, okay, do we give it a sequel? Do we give a promotion to our development team? Do you give them a bonus, right? So they want to see a number, and they use Metacritic. And if you're a game developer and you want that promotion or you want that sequel, well, for you, it doesn't matter if the game sells or not. You're still going to get your money back, right? For you, what matters is to get a high number on Metacritic. And if you look at Metacritic, for example, publications like video game review websites that are Christian, I know there are a few, like surprising, right? They don't get to be allowed there because, you have a Christian bias, blah, blah, blah. But publications that openly claim that they're 100% feminist and they're activists and they're doing a push to make more feminism into video games, those are allowed. Those are fine, right? So you have all these very progressive journalists over there who obviously are going to give a rating to the game according to how progressive the game is. And then you see the marketing of Battlefield 5 where you got like crippled women in the front lines of World War II nonetheless. And all the journalists are like, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 Kotaku. And then when the gamers complain, you have like some snob developer that don't like it, don't buy it. Like, that's bad for business. Like, there's no way of putting it out there. Like the game journalists aren't going to be the ones that are pushing your sale. And again, it's not the game developers. I speak with game developers from EA. They wanted to create an accurate historical game, but then the market company comes in and it's like, no, you're going to slap a woman on the box because that's progressive. And then the people up top, the ones that are paying money, it's like, well, we're looking at Metacritic. It best have a good grade on Metacritic. And I think like that's the main issue, that they're not making games for the gamers. They're making games for the video game journalist. And then like finally, the last reason, which I think is also pretty important, are the diversity officers. Officer. It's such an Orwellian name, diversity officer. And the diversity officer, what they do is that they don't hire people based on merit. They don't even hire people on diversity. Like there's a research study that says hiring a diversity officer doesn't increase diversity. Imagine that. No, they hire based on ideology, and they make sure that you have like they're the people that maintain the corporate culture, if you will, right? Like when I talk about collectivism, this is what I mean. It's corporate culture in the corporate world. Like every single person needs to have this corporate mindset that's dictated top down, right? Like the person tells you how to think. It's like, oh no, you need to be a progressive, right? And you can see this in Google, where you have the James Damore problem and the Google lawsuits, where we're like, no, you don't vote for Donald Trump. That is violence. And it's like, well, what do you care who I vote for? Like, I come to Google to work. Like, I'm an engineer. I engineer things. Why do you care who I vote for, right? But it does get to that extent. It does get to that point where the corporate culture like literally invades every aspect of the human life. And I genuinely think this is why you see so many game developers on the Twitter constantly talking about politics. Like there are some video games developers that you would say they're CNN anchors, and they all have the same opinions, they all have the same stances, the same political leanings. And I think it's just to show to the diversity officer, it's like, look, please, don't fire me. Don't fire, no, I hate Trump. I hate Trump. Trump is bad. The wall is bad. No, racism, evil, And I generally think like this is why they do it. Because the diversity officer is looming down their throat. And you get to go to these websites where it shows people who have worked at a company And then they talk about why they left, right? And a lot of people, this is why they're pissed off. They're saying it's like, look, I know people who are talented, people who are really good, again, like James Damore, and they get fired because they have different political leanings. But it's not only that. Like, I will tell you something that I know from nepotism in my country, because when it comes to nepotism and underhanded tactics, I'm an expert, I come from the culture. But here's the thing. You usually get someone that's not qualified in a position of power. And this can happen quite easily, right? Like maybe the person fits the diversity quota, or maybe, he's the right kind of nepotistic relation. He's the son that's the wife of the cousin of the uncle or whatever, right? And he gets the position. Now, when you have a person that's not qualified who gets a position that they don't deserve, the first thing that happens is that the penis grows. The penis grows, and they need to affirm that power. They need to affirm that position. And usually they affirm it by being tyrannical, by starting to punish people, by starting to make sure that no one talks against them or whatever, right? But the biggest threat to these people, the biggest threat are people with actual talent. Because they're afraid that their boss are going to recognize that under them there is a guy with more power and he's going to take his job. So what happens is that obviously they can't just fire the guy, but they are going to wait up until the guy makes some mistakes, or tweets something on Twitter that's not favorable, or says something that's not acceptable, or maybe the guy actually happens to be a straight white man and the company just needs a little bit extra diversity. So all of these things, they lead to, like, if you're not having a culture of excellence, a culture that promotes people that actually are worthy of promotion, well, you're going to end up with whatever you wanted. I don't know, ideology and people that are 100% in agreement with everything, but people who don't make really good video games. And I think like all of these reasons, I genuinely think like everything that I've talked up till now, all of them are leading to video games getting such a huge financial hit. And I don't know where it's going to go, honestly. I don't, because I look at the comic book industry, and the comic book industry is in a similar situation. People don't buy, their stocks have went down. I'm talking about Marvel especially. And they don't seem to change. Like the thing which is astonishing, right, is that they convince themselves that they want to change the world or some shit, and the way to change the world is through diversity and social justice. And if they don't get the sales, if for some reason the customers are against that, what happens is that they think it's because they're not diverse and social justice enough. So they double down on social justice and diversity, and it causes, this circular effect where, okay, they double down, more customers leave, they double down again, more customers leave. And I genuinely don't know when this will stop. But what I do know is that the foreign gaming companies like CD Projekt Red and the Japanese gaming industry, they're going to make a killing out of it, because they're going to take advantage of all of this nonsense, and they're actually going to release good games that the players are going to want to play. And as an Eastern European, I'm more than happy to see a Polish company like CD Projekt Red making such excellent games. Do you know that there's not a Witcher that's coming out every year? Do you notice that? Interesting, isn't it? It's not that they're insulting their customers. They're not trying to change the world with social justice, even though like people were hammering The Witcher, saying, oh my god, like The Witcher 3 has no black people in it. Oh, the tragedy. In a Polish folklore inspired game, yeah, there's no black people in Eastern Europe. Imagine why would that be? And then you also got the upcoming game that they're making, which seems really great. Maybe more companies like that will be on the scene. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing that the Western market is taking a blow. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you all in the comment section. Oh, P.S. There's one more reason. The Chinese appeasement. The Chinese appeasement. Like, everyone is trying to appease China, and they're trying to remove every single boobie and cleavage and everything sexual in video games that are renowned for selling because of tits and violence. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, if you want to appease the Chinese, you're going to lose the Westerners. Because this is something that video game developers just don't want to grasp. Like, it doesn't compute in their head. You can't please both. You need to pick and choose. Now, you already have customers that are loyal and they're going to buy your game, and you want to reach out and grab a different market. And in order to do that, you're changing the game. There's no guarantee that the people who are loyal and purchased your game are still going to do that if you're changing it. So you need to make sure that the changes aren't so brutal that the people who have been purchasing your game for all this time aren't going to leave. Because what can happen is that, and this has happened with the comic book industry, it's like, oh, we want the greater market, we want the, what do they call it? Because they got a name for it. It's really annoying when you hear the broader audience, oi, oi, oi. So when they want to go for the broader audience, what happens is that their previous audience leaves them because they don't like the new game, and the broader audience isn't interested in their shit. So it doesn't end up being so. And instead of companies just making a version for China that's censored and a version for, I don't know, the West that's uncensored, no, they just censor it for everyone. And it's like, okay, no, thank you. I don't want you to censor my games. You know, if it's not too much that. Again, my wallet is open. The butt cheeks of my wallet are fully open. The paper looks like a clitoris coming from the wallet, just waiting for you to grab it and take it. You don't want it, I'm not giving it to you. You know, I'm not that rich. Not that rich. The wallet clitoris is very small. It's tiny. Now, you know, like, I can only afford to buy one, maybe 2 games every 2 months. And that's quite a lot, actually, if I think about it. You know, so for me, making a purchase is a very important thing. Like, if I have to choose between Resident Evil 2 and Anthem, there's not even a choice. There's not even, like, the Japanese already grabbed my wallet's clip. They already have a tight grip on it. I'm sorry. We'll see how this goes. Maybe companies are going to understand and change. You know, instead of hiring a diversity officer, why not hire someone that actually knows gamers? Why not hire an actual gamer and try to make games for the gamers? Notice how games that are toxic are the ones that are selling. It seems that toxicity sells. And you have to think about, like, do you want to make money or do you want to change the world?